And there's just a list of resources, and so also great information, but it's where some of our information for today has come from. And are there any questions?
Yes. Yes, on the topic of differential diagnosis. Yes. I missed what you said about making the differentiation between obsessive compulsive and delusional disorder.
Delusional, and maybe I even didn't state it. Delusional is when it's tough if a client has limited insight. So if they have absolutely no insight to it, then you are left to see if they have delusion, like how it plays out in other areas. And as well as a delusional disorder, they're often not as bothered. So they have that belief, but it's placed out on something else or somebody else. They're delusional about something versus a client with anxiety that might have. So I have had a client that had an obsession that their friend could control their mind. And so, but they had insight to really see that that's craziness. That doesn't even make sense. But every time they came in contact with that friend, they then started having that obsession. And insight usually is occurring when you're not in the middle of the cycle. So when you're not in the middle of feeling incredibly anxious, but you can step back and go, what happened yesterday? Why did I think that? That didn't make any sense. That's insight. In the middle of it, most clients don't feel like their fear is excessive or incorrect. They're convinced of it in the middle. And delusional, people with delusions aren't convinced of it. But it is tougher to discern and to feather out if the client really has no insight. Yeah. And then far back?
Yes, two quick questions with the PANDA. So if you get a child that comes in and the parent says they've had an infection or they've been taken to the doctor for strep and been treated, you still send them back because there's some other kind of treatment they need?
I would want to do a consultation with the doctor, with the pediatrician. Again, I don't treat kids, but if it were me, I would want to talk to the pediatrician, see where we are, see what they think of the treatment, like where they think the antibiotic treatment and stuff is.
And then the other thing was, so you said let the client be in control of what they want to do with the exposure or which exposure. So do they help you create it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not prescribing for my client what they will face because I will not be successful. So I even now remember, I don't think I said that, I'm getting agreement and I'm getting commitment. And so what are you willing to face this week that you're stopping obsessions, or compulsions, excuse me, let me use the right verbiage, that you're stopping your compulsions. And the other thing I'm getting commitment from them is that once we capture this ground, we're holding our line. And then the next thing that we're gonna face, we don't ever go back. So if I'm no longer washing my hands when I touch the door, my office doorknob, then the next week when we add something else in, we're still holding our line on that first one. So we're capturing more and more and more of our world back, but absolutely needing commitment and agreement from clients.
Thank you.
Well, in strategies, we had analyzing beliefs, probability, responsibility, reframing intrusive thoughts, and examining evidence. That sounds like CBT to me, and CBT, I bet, wasn't so hot for this.
And so as I was stating when I went over those, is that I would do those initially because they help insight and they help build motivation to face something. So yes, but we don't want to stay just there and reframe. It's the cognitive reframing of that it is safe or reasonable for me to face that my car might be being stolen right now. So yeah. It's the very beginning, yes. I don't want to stay there because the logic or reasoning won't ultimately treat the OCD. But it is a very important piece because it helps clients see that it's reasonable to face that obsession. Yeah, that's a good clarification.
In terms of nature and nurture, do you see some family dynamics in people who develop OCD?
Again, a very good question because they don't fully know what causes OCD. There are some things that are starting to play out that show maybe some genetics, but also if you think, it's a lot of family members that have OCD, they have kids that have OCD, and how much of that is nature versus nurture. They learned a lot of those patterns. In fact, that's a lot of times why moms are very motivated when they come in and meet with me. It's because their kids are starting to pick up their patterns and they don't want the patterns for their kids. Yeah.
On kind of piggybacking on that, is there cases, or do you know, like, on the onset of OCD, child or adult, is there cases where it kind of starts, just maybe stays at a functional level and then kind of goes back to normal on their own? Or does it always progress and get worse and need treatment?
Typically, it progresses and gets worse, but absolutely, I always say too, there's an ebb and flow to OCD. So even without treatment, clients go through a pattern of that it's really, really tough sometimes, and then it becomes a little bit easier and it's not as bothersome. And when they come for treatment, it's often that they've faced some kind of life event that it becomes dysfunctional then, that the OCD becomes more problematic.
ADHD, there's a lot of ADHD, it's not too excessive, and they kind of just manage it lifelong, and it even seems to get a little better in adults.
And there definitely are people with OCD that just manage it and never get a treatment, absolutely. So it's not a guarantee that if somebody has OCD, they're going to get worse and worse and worse, yes, absolutely. But a lot of times life events make it worse, yeah. Any other questions? Uh-huh.
I had a client who had a very persistent cycle of these compulsions with her medical care, and so her medical health. So she would be concerned that she had diabetes, so she would be concerned that her sugars were too high. They never were too high. And then she'd also be concerned that she had hyponatremia, so she would be concerned that there would not be enough sodium in her body. So the diabetes would make her thirsty, so she would drink water. But then drinking all the water, so, okay, you got it. So she would put sugar in her drinks, and just put so much sugar in it. And she's like in the 300 range, her glucose. So it was never low, it's always high. So we tried getting her like what's it called, the strips to assess, to check her sugars, and she would go through hundreds of them within a very short period of time. And so I was researching, and I noticed some of the diagnoses, there are different diagnoses for that compulsive medical thing that's going on. So, I mean, in your experience, what have you seen with that medical piece and the compulsion, or is that a separate diagnosis?
There is a diagnosis of illness anxiety disorder, it used to be hypochondriasis, and it is treated very similar to OCD because the person, no amount of answering medically is ever going to solve it for them to feel confident about the fear that they have diabetes or fear that they have hyponatremia. And so they're going to keep doing those compulsions to feel better. So I would go back to, what are the triggers? Okay, the triggers are if she feels lousy, if she feels thirsty, that if she hasn't eaten recently. The obsession is I have diabetes or I have this low sodium problem. And so all of those things are compulsions of checking it, looking over, eating excessive, drinking excessive amounts of water or drinking sugar. And so I would say all of those compulsions are the things that you're working on stopping and starting to face, not all at once. But it would be that setting out a goal that after I eat lunch, then I'm going to start having the thought of going, oh no, I have diabetes, I better drink some water, and I'm going to make myself, I'm going to make myself not do that compulsion. But we can also, that's what I was saying, we can get really creative of we're starting to build in duration and frequency. So if she's unable to tolerate that or face it at that level, maybe it's that if she drinks 3 glasses of water right after lunch, maybe my first goal would be that she drinks 2 glasses, or that she waits an hour before she allows herself to drink a glass, because we're starting to change that cycle so that learning can take place. Yeah, and so.
And thank you for that. Just to add, I met with her and she was like cured. She had so much insight. And she was relaxed, and she didn't have the anxiety. And I asked, well, what happened? She had recently hospitalized, and the doctor did some invasive surgery where she had to be put under, and they put a camera down her throat. And so that was like very reassuring for her. But the concern was that she would need something more invasive in the future to bring it back down.
So when I hear something like that with a client and I hear that the reason that it has changed dramatically is because of a procedure that she's received, my brain's going to start going, I'll see you in 6 months. And not mean, I just think that that's not been treated. It just is that she's not faced the angst that something is wrong. She's, in essence, the cycle, gotten enough reassurance to make the anxiety go down for right now. Love to having y'all here, and I'm very glad that y'all came, and hopefully it's been helpful, and treat OCD.